If there is one big lesson from 2011, the year of the Arab Spring, it is that it is never, ever a good idea to go to bed with dictators. It was a bad idea to go to bed with the Mubarak regime or the Ben Ali regime of Tunisia, or for that matter with the Assad one of Syria. So you would have thought that Russia and the European Union and the United States and others would have learned something. Not so. We think that Uzbekistan is an example of business as usual with one of the worst dictatorships on the planet. And it's happening from this country, it's happening from Western Europe, it's happening from North America, and it's happening from Russia. Why is that? Well, Russia would exchange having a stable ally to its south for tolerating any kind of repression. The NATO countries, European, Americans, have exchanged the right to have bases in Uzbekistan and access to Afghanistan, where we have the NATO operations going. They've exchanged that for looking the other way, to turning a blind eye to massive torture, to repression of the worst sort, political prisoners, imprisonment of human rights defenders, and the dismantling of the legal independent profession. That's why we have called this report "No One Left to Witness." Why is that? Because people told Steve and others there's nobody there to tell anymore of what is happening in the prisons and elsewhere, because everybody's silenced. The independent legal profession is abolished, and there are very few international witnesses in the place. Now, it is in this context quite remarkable that sanctions were dropped in 2009 from the European Union side, that the United States is now actively discussing resuming military assistance, military aid, other aid to the dictatorship. What do we want happening? Well, we want several things to happen. We want it to be put on the top of the agenda of the Foreign Affairs Council of the European Union, because it's a human rights crisis and it's happening close to Europe, and it's happening with European fingerprints all over the country. It hasn't even been on the agenda for 2011 in the Foreign Affairs Council. Number two, we want there to be targeted, punitive measures against those who are responsible for this atrocious repression. The institutions like the security police, the prison office, the representatives of the regime responsible for this should have their visa taken away, should have their assets frozen, as it's been done in other cases where less repression was happening, unless there is progress. And how do we measure progress? Well, not like Europeans and others seem to be tricked to believe that if you name a few human rights officers, it's progress. If you have a human rights dialogue, then something good must be happening, because we're talking so often about human rights. Human rights progress is measured in the prisons and in the interrogation chamber, in the torture chambers. If torture happens, it's a sign that there is no progress. We want there also to be a United Nations special procedure happening. The United Nations needs to place Uzbekistan firmly on its agenda with a special rapporteur, a permanent procedure so that we can review what is happening. We will be continuing campaigning on this, and you will talk about our campaign.